Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse here, aka BGFH, and I am back for. I'm not even quite sure what I want to call this video, but this is kind of, I don't know, a video podcast, if you will. Just sort of a informal thoughts, discussions, reflections sort of a thing. Again, just trying something new on the channel again, but there's just been so many areas, so many different topics relating to The Last of Us Part 2 that has come out on the PlayStation 4 on Friday, in terms of the gameplay itself, the story, the accessibility, um, system exclusivity, all kinds of different things. And I did get the game on Friday, and I'm recording this on Sunday. And yeah, basically, I don't know if I should be proud or ashamed, and probably the answer is both. But yeah, I did play through the entire game over the last 2 days. I finished it about 11:30 ish last night, Saturday night. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to rush through the game. It's not like I was trying to race through it or anything, but I was just genuinely enthralled in the game, both story wise and mechanics wise. Like, I like exploring these areas. I like the downtime, but I like I like the action, the shooty stuff. But honestly, especially due to the accessibility features built into The Last of Us Part 2, I did a lot more stealth than I would typically do, or would typically normally be able to do in these types of games. Because usually how it goes is, okay, I might kill a couple, one or two dudes, and then I'll inevitably screw something up because I just something will go wrong, or I won't see something and the guy will get the drop on me, and then it's just basically all out warfare until I kill the entire swarm of people that are now clued into my whereabouts. So yeah. So this video is kind of just going to be me rambling a bit, just because I know I have lots of different thoughts about the game and that some of the topics that have arisen because of it. And I've heard a few people on Twitter, even people in general, just saying that they would be curious what I thought about the game. So first, I'm going to talk about the stuff that is not spoiler specific, but I do, at the end of the video, I will touch a little bit on what I thought of the story, and I really cannot do that without giving spoilers away, because, I mean, the huge, huge part of the Last of Us series and Naughty Dog games in general is their story. So I will leave that for the end. And I will say, if you have any interest in playing this game, whether it's from a gameplay or a story or an accessibility perspective, and you've watched or listened to some other people stream the game or play the game, or because of this and other videos or something, I would just say go out and play it. Go out and if you have the opportunity, getting a PlayStation 4 or even waiting in for the PS5, then this game should be backwards compatible, I would hope. Or playing it, maybe getting it to borrow it from a friend or something. I don't know, but I would just say definitely play this game. And if you have the means, support Sony, support especially Naughty Dog in this, because financials, the bottom line does matter. I mean, that's going to show that we can talk about it on Twitter, we can post videos, we can do podcasts, we can do whatever the hell we want. But if we don't buy the game, that's what's going to matter to future studios going forward, who may be or may not be thinking about or wanting to invest in accessibility. So yeah, I mean, if you have the means of anyway and you are interested, definitely support the developers because we'll start with accessibility. Wow. I mean, Naughty Dog has done a fan freaking tastic job. I mean, and I can fully speak to it because I have played all the way through the game. I did my first. I did my stream on Friday where I booted up the game for the first time. Again, we're looking at in the background here. I just have the beginning of the Naughty Dog article, their blog post on all of the accessibility features in the game, and they broke it down by category like hearing, vision, mobility, cognitive, whatever, miscellaneous. I mean, there's over 60 features in this game, and it's like I said in the stream. It's one thing to see these things on a website. It's great to see. It's like, oh, cool. I can see it ahead of time. I can get excited to play this just like everyone else who may be excited to play a game. But it's a whole other thing having the controller in your hand and being able to, turn these features on and off and actually use them at will. You know, it's pretty damn incredible. I mean, especially like I love where accessibility has gone in the last couple of years. I've been excited. Again, that's the one thing in 2020 that hasn't been an absolute complete train wreck. 2020 in large has just been awful in so many ways. And this, to me, has just kind of been one of the bright spots. Is we've seen some great stuff in accessibility the last couple of years, but even this year alone, there's been several things that have happened. Just seeing a lot more text to speech in games, Minecraft Dungeons, Age of Empires 2. I mean, that as complex as that game is. Again, there's still some flaws, especially with navigation and in-game control if you're totally blind. But again, that up to that point, that was one of the things that really impressed me about, hey, here's a big mainstream game that I really didn't think would be made all that playable for low vision or blind players. And they haven't totally figured it out, but they took a big step. And as Steve Saylor had said, I forget if it was in a video or on Twitter. I think it was in one of his initial videos with him and Courtney. He had said basically, there's two times right now. There's two accessibility times right now. We have before The Last of Us Part 2 and after The Last of Us Part 2. I mean, that's how big of an impact I think this game could potentially have, because it is a well-known developer. It is a AAA game. It is a huge big budget game. I mean, not considering accessibility whatsoever, the main, most everybody who has been reviewing this game has not even really barely, if at all, touched on the accessibility features, and they're still giving the game 9.5, 10s review scores because of the production value, the gameplay, the story, the characters, the voice acting, the presentation, just, everything in general. This is leaving accessibility completely out of the picture. The Last of Us Part 2 is getting just rave reviews from a lot of different places. And then you add to that the pretty comprehensive, the most comprehensive accessibility feature list and support that I've ever seen in a mainstream game. Yeah, I mean, he is right. Steve Saylor is right. And there is the before and the after of The Last of Us Part 2. And I got to admit, one of the things that I might have even said it during the stream, but I know I thought it while playing the game the last couple of days. And as great as this game is, It's going to be really hard now going forward. It's going to be hard going back and playing any other game, especially in the like third or first person or actiony genre that doesn't have these accessibility features, because this game has utterly just spoiled me so bad that it's like, oh, but it doesn't have this. The game doesn't have this feature, or it doesn't have that feature, or it doesn't. It's harder for me to read this text, or I get lost in the environment really easy, or oh, I can't quite see if that enemy can. I can't tell if he can see me or not if I'm stealthing. There's so many different little things that these accessibility features in The Last of Us Part 2 had really done. And that's why this is not a short game, you guys. This is probably a 25 30 hour game. I mean, it's a long single player game, and that just tells you all the more. And why, they said, yeah, it might be a little bit embarrassing that I spent just utterly almost every waking hour of the last 2 days playing this damn game, because I just got so hooked on it. But it was just a mostly painless experience. I'm not saying there wasn't challenge, because there was. There absolutely was challenge, which is, I like playing games for, some of the empowerment and, kind of crazy like power fantasy stuff, just like the next person. But, I want there to be a fun challenge, not a frustrating challenge because something is really cheap. But, I like shooter games. I like action games. I like some stealth games. And I'm not a huge fan of stealth, but when it's done well and it's done to where I can see it or participate in it well enough, then yeah. I mean, like Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Splinter Cell Conviction. Those were games that had little visual cues, like highlights and different visual modes that made me really like those games and actually be able to play those games. I mean, they were kind of accessibility features in their own right, like the Splinter Cell alternate vision modes, like the kind of black and whitish highlighter mode. It's similar. It's a similar type of thing to Naughty Dog's high contrast mode. I mean, but there's so many little things in The Last of Us 2 that I'm really impressed with. So, I mean, where do I begin? I mean, I know I'm just kind of jumping all over the place, but talk about a few experiences, accessibility-wise, of me playing this game. So, I played The Last of Us Part 1 on the PlayStation 3, originally, several years ago when it came out. I think, God, that was like 7 years ago, I think they said. That's insane. And I loved it. Again, the story was great. The graphics, the presentation, the audio, the voice acting was great. But there were very minimal accessibility features in that game. And having played through it, and, other games similar, or at least, third-person games, I've played a couple of the Tomb Raider games. I've played, oh God, I don't know how many other third-person. I'm sure I've covered several of them on the channel. Third-person games, but I mean, the graphics being so good as they are, yeah, they're fun to look at, but whether you're in an open world or even more of a linear experience like the Last of Us games, it can sometimes be hard to figure out where to go. What is that one thing? Because especially if it's on a linear path and there's really one objective that they want you to do to progress, I can even have trouble with that. Even in a first-person shooter, it's like, oh, you're running around shooting dudes, but there's this one switch or this one thing, this one vent you got to crawl through that you don't know, and you don't know that you have to go through a vent, but there's just this one little pathway that they want you to go down. You got to make this one jump, and I saw that earlier, but I thought it was too far away. So I didn't try to jump it because my depth perception thought it was like, no, I can't make that. Little things like that. Um, or just a climbable vine maybe that you're in this foresty area, and I didn't know this was the one vine that I could climb, or the well hidden really narrow path in a rock, a whole bunch of rocky area. There's all kinds of examples where I could get stuck even in a linear game. So, when I started the stream, I turned on the blind and low vision accessibility categories. I just said, hey, let's just turn these on and run with them. And then I fiddled around with a few settings during the stream and a little bit afterward, and just tried a few different things, turned them on and off. And there were things that I just, the more I played the game, the more I fell in love with these features, because it kept me going, and the game didn't make me frustrated because I got lost or I got stuck, or just these things that are related to my vision. Oh, I couldn't see where this enemy was, so I keep getting pot shotted and dying every 2 seconds. Like I said, I didn't get lost. That kind of a thing. So the accessibility features that I think were some of the most helpful. I really liked the listening mode feature, where you hold down the right bumper, or R1, and then you either hit the square for enemies or circle for items, and you just kind of ping a little radar around you, and then it'll make an audio sound, and it will put little white circles in the environment visually saying, hey, there's something of interest over here if they're an item, or it'll glow red, bright red, when it's an enemy, so you can kind of tell. So that I found really helpful. Again, click just the simple, and even when you hold, let's say you do the R1 and you hit square or circle, and then it does ping with the sound, and if it's not in your immediate vision, while that's held down, I can still click the left stick or L3, and it'll spin the camera to face whatever object that radar found. And even as a low vision user, relying on audio or vision, or both, it really helped. Because I'm like, oh, okay, there is something hidden in that little corner that I missed, or something like that. So that was helpful. And even again, just having the R1, or I keep wanting to say R1, L1, or L3, the left analog stick, clicking L3, the left analog stick, as a navigation guide. That, other games have sort of done this, but they've really just had like a lot of the way that a lot of other linear games have done this is that they've had like a waypoint thing that'll sort of generally point you to the direction that you're supposed to go in, but what it does and doesn't do is different, because what they'll often do is they'll just have some sort of like a visual indicator, like a little diamond or some other shape, like a pin, and then it'll, right beside it in tiny letters, it'll say, like, 350 feet away, and then as you get closer, it'll be there. And if you're facing it, that it's in that right direction. But what it doesn't tell you is that you can't just beeline in that direction. First, you have to take this weird, crazy route out of, you got to go around the building to the left, and then you got to jump into the sewers for a little bit. Then you got to jump up, and then you got to climb out and get to the second roof and then the rooftop of this building to jump over there. And then eventually that is how you get to your objective. So it's not like this straight beeline to your objective. But that's all the game really tells you is, yeah, go this way, roughly this way, figure out how to get there. I remember the pathfinding and the mission of like the waypoints in Wolfenstein Youngblood being this weird hub-based pseudo open world. I found that waypoint system to be very frustrating. Like I wanted to like the game, and like every time you go into revisit an area, like enemies would respawn, and it just wasn't very good. I did not have as much fun with it as I wanted to. But The Last of Us 2, what they do is they say, okay, you click that left analog stick, and it kind of, it tells you, like, it'll start the radar, and then based on how far that little virtual waypoint is, you'll hear a higher beep to indicate how far away it is. And audio-wise, or visual, they will also have, it will flash a giant white arrow in the middle of the screen, and it'll either point it forward or it'll point a little bit left or right, and it'll tilt up or down if your objective is above or below you. It's like, okay, am I supposed to try to make this jump, or am I supposed to fall down here? Because it's like the distance. Like, let's say there's many places where you are exploring these old ruined buildings, and like the middle of a particular floor will be gutted, and so you just have this like rotted boards all around the border, and it's like, okay, do you want me to jump across this broken floor, or do you want me to drop down to the floor below and then find another way around or up again? So just being able to click that stick, and within like a 0.5 seconds, I just go, oh, okay, I know exactly where I know exactly what I need to do, and I don't have to misjudge things and die because I totally guessed the wrong thing that I was supposed to do. There were a couple of instances later in the game where I had a little bit of trouble and with the waypoint system. Like, I would say it worked almost flawlessly, probably 95-98% of the time. There was one short part, and it was pretty late in the game. It's going to be a minor spoiler, and if I remember to talk more in depth about it during the spoiler section, I will try to remember. But all I will say is that there is a point where you're up against a sniper outside in the street, and the waypoint marker went really wiggy. You were supposed to go down the street, dodging, like ducking behind cars and other cover so you could close in the distance to the sniper. And the waypoint, I don't know if it was just that when I loaded the game or when I was continuing, if I would have reloaded and then the waypoint would have fixed itself. Or if it was just being janked during that particular section, because if I were a blind player, I would probably not have been able to complete that part as my game progressed, because there was like a building or a fence or something to the left, and the arrow kept, you'd click the stick and it would keep pointing, instead of saying go forward and kind of try to weave your way down the street behind these sets of cover, it just kept saying go straight up to the left. And no matter where I was, most of the time, like, it would, every once in a while it would say, okay, now you can go to the right. But a lot of the times it would point me too far to the left where there was just nothing. It was just open cover, and the sniper was so powerful that naturally, it's a high, just this crazy sniper rifle you're getting pegged with. And even on a lower difficulty, 2-3 shots tops and you're dead. So I really kind of had to use my vision at that point. And when I was playing this game, I did use a combination of blind features and low vision features. So I played the game partially visually, but I relied a lot on the audio cues too, because it gave me an extra like awareness in the game. So I used a combination. But that was one part where it kind of fell apart, and then I had to chase him. Well, you get far enough, and you have to the game has a few different chase sequences, and most of the time, every other time, the arrow and the navigation worked beautifully. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But the one part where it fell apart is at this sniper area. It just completely kept pointing me to this one spot, and there was nothing. I don't know if like an event didn't trigger, but it kept pointing me to behind this little wall, this waist high wall, near where your buddy was just kind of hiding behind, and like nothing would happen. I ran around the world, and I think the game was just all screwed up in general, because even when I wasn't running, my character was just super running fast, more than they normally do. And that was the one instance where I reloaded the last checkpoint, and then it behaved itself. Whatever happened, I repeated like about 15-20 seconds of gameplay, and then it picked up and it worked fine. But there was this weird little stretch where going down the street, and then a little bit of the chase. It was kind of where where all the seating was, like where you're really getting close to them, and there's all those like airport seats in a row. That room, it just really wigged out on me, and I had to reload the checkpoint. But that being said, again, the navigation, when I was not just getting around the environment, but again, there are several chase scenes. Either you are chasing down somebody, or more often than not, you're running for your life from whatever is chasing you. And in both cases, for the most part, you were not really shooting that much. You were just running because there was nothing much you could do. There was way too many enemies, or too powerful of an enemy, or just stuff was going down everywhere. And in normal games that have these types of chase sequences, I've played several of them. And I mean, even third or first person. I remember not The Last of Us. Outlast was a first person game that had quite a few of those. I mean, again, it's a common video game mechanic in first and third person games. And more often than not, I am going to die probably more than once, probably half a dozen times, if not more, until I basically memorize the entire route that it wants me to take. So I generally rather dislike chase sequences. They look cool, but the way that they're designed, they're meant to look cool if you can do it in the first one or two tries of playing that sequence. It's not, the coolness factor is gone when you have to do the same chase sequence a dozen times because you keep going the wrong way, or you get stuck, or you get lost, and it's just kind of unforgiving, and boom, you make one mistake and the chase is over. I mean, even The Last of Us 1 had some chases. The prologue actually had some chases, and I died on that once or twice, because I didn't know I was supposed to go down or jump a fence or something like that. So just being able to click that stick, boom, I'm running, okay, I'm not quite sure. Do I go forward or do I go right? Or, I would just click the stick fairly often, and the navigation system kept up. I mean, it's not just here's your primary objective. You need to go from here to across the city. It's no, you need to go, forward until you hit the end of this bench. Then you need to take a right. Then you need to go 20 feet in that direction until you need to turn left through that doorway. I mean, I don't know how in the hell they managed to create such a pathfinding system for the player to follow, especially a totally blind player to follow, not just on a flat ground, a flat level like audio games typically have, but like I said, complex environments, like all modern games have. But like I said, 98% of the time it did a fan-frickin-tastic job. I don't know how in the heck they did it, but they did it, man. Another example of that, underwater. I hate underwater levels most of the times. They're never fun. They often go on too long. You have to worry about breathing. The visibility, naturally, because you're underwater, you've got this, blue or green or dirty water haze that makes it harder. And then the deeper you go, the darker it gets, because that's how visuals work underwater. I get that. But as a low vision user, it gets really frustrating. But again, swimming, I have the option to have infinite breath. So if I want to explore underwater, I can. And not have to worry about, oh crap, I got disoriented in this labyrinth of tunnels, or I ran under a rock and now I can't figure out how to get out. And then I'm going to, lose my breath underwater and die. But even if I'm not doing that, it's just like, okay, I want to keep the underwater part going. And there weren't too many of those. There were a few parts where you would have to swim underwater, but they weren't for any huge lengths of time. It wasn't like you were exploring an underwater shipwreck or something and you had to stay down there for any huge length of time. But, again, clicking that left thumbstick and going, oh, okay. And then you would hear not, there would be times where, okay, you're just supposed to swim across this lake and then climb up the other side. But then there were other times where you would swim across and then you would click the stick, and not only would you see the arrow, but it would point down and you would hear the regular ping sound with a bubbly water sound, which would indicate, okay, you're supposed to dive here. The way forward is for you to dive under the water and swim under the rocks or swim under some obstacle. Again, hugely helpful, because then it was like, okay, as a low vision user, am I supposed to find that one little ledge that I can grab or one little thing that I can do to climb up somewhere? Or am I supposed to dive underwater and try to find, try to hold my breath long enough to try to find that one little tunnel that I can squeeze through when I can't really see under the water super well? Again, I never had a problem. It just kept the game moving and it kept me engaged and having fun. So the navigation system alone, both the radar pinging for enemies and objects, and especially that general left stick click, L3 click feature, was beautiful. I used that feature a lot. And then but then there were times where I would just visually, I would walk around. I would not rely on the navigation system. I would just walk around an environment and fully just explore it, take in the atmosphere, the environmental storytelling, and just find little secrets on my own. Loved it. Loved it. And I will say this much. The last thing I will say about the navigation system is I have never been so happy to be wrong in my life as far as game accessibility goes, because one of the things that I kept saying in previous videos when I would talk about, even access unlocked videos or game accessibility videos or during a spotlight video for a game, the one thing I could never really wrap my head around is, okay, we got the text-to-speech for menus, for inventories, dialogues, all these different things. We have, some in-game assistant things like little arrows and waypoints or, those types of things. But the thing that I kept getting hung up on was, because again, I was used to the way that audio games presented it and how linear it was, like, or just the way that they did, like, say what you will, but the general complexity of an audio only game designed for blind players and even a fairly simple mainstream game 3D environment, there's no comparison. The mainstream game is just way more complex. You're not just walking on a flat plane and trying to find your way through. Yeah, it could be first person, like A Hero's Call, which was a great game. And you do go up and down staircases. You do, but you're typically on a flat plane, be it the grass, the streets, or the first or second floor of a building, whatever. But in games like Left 4 Dead or even Doom, the Last of Us, the environments are just so much more complicated, and the one thing I could not wrap my head around was, how do you make a third or first person game linear or open world? How in the hell do you translate that to something a totally blind player would actually be able to navigate around? I thought it probably could be done, but I just did not know what combination of things would be necessary to really make that happen. And I didn't see it happening. That piece of the accessibility for the blind accessibility puzzle, I didn't see falling into place for quite a while longer yet. But like I said, I was so happy to be proven wrong, because the Last of Us 2 nailed it. You're not just walking on the ground. You are going up and down sides of buildings. You're going up and down inside of buildings, through broken floors. There's a part where you're I'm not going to say anything really spoilery, but like there's parts where you're literally walking like dozens of stories in the air on like super high narrow beams, and you can still do this with no vision whatsoever. And the amount of environment variety and complexity that you have to navigate in that game. Whether it's open world or not. Hell, I could see, with something like that, I could see something like an Assassin's Creed or even a Grand Theft Auto game. I could see that working. I could totally see that working. This type of system, these types of systems, I should say, because you do need a few pieces working together to make it fully work. But I totally can see it working now, because The Last of Us proved it could be done. So I'm never happy to be more wrong. I've never been happy to be more wrong about that. So that's the navigation system. The other thing that I didn't think that I would use, I thought it was a neat idea, but again, with The Last of Us being such a visually stunning game to look at, I'm like, well, I want to see what the game actually looks like. I want to see it in all of its detail. But on this webpage that we've been staring at this whole time, the first thing that they show right here is the high contrast mode. We got us in blue, and we have an enemy in red. We have we're in some sort of a store. We got some shelves around, and like everything is just kind of like a simplified. So you've kind of got this like muted background color. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. Day, night, sunrise, sunset, stormy, rainy, whatever, sunny. When you switch high contrast mode on, this is what it's going to look like. It draws out the environment, objects that are of interest, like doors or cabinets that you can open, are yellow. I mean, there's just bright primary colors. Stuff just super stands out. And again, a large point of The Last of Us Part 2, a large gameplay style is stealth. You know, you can go into things action-y or stealthy, but especially on higher difficulty levels, like the resource scarcity could be a real problem. So you really don't want to always go in guns blazing, because you are going to run out of ammo and resources probably quite quickly. So being stealthy is important. And there's tons of different, there's so many gameplay settings in addition to the high contrast that work together, that you don't even have to use high contrast if you don't want to. But, you can choose how aggressive your enemies are, how aggressive your AI teammates are, how accurate the enemies are. Like, do they shoot at you a lot but they miss more often? Or do they take longer to see you? So one of the cool things is as the enemy was starting to notice you, your controller would start to vibrate more heavily. Like, oh, dude, you're not only are you getting like audio cue, but your controller is saying, oh, you better get out of their vision quick, otherwise they're really going to spot you. And then this high contrast mode again. Sometimes you're in tall grass that obscures things, and all I really see is the leaves and the grass of the trees, and the shrubs and grass and everything. Especially when you're fighting those Seraphites group, where they were like doing the whistles and stuff. The tribal guys with bow and arrows and that, like, you were in these environments where the environment was actually, hindering me being able to see through all this greenery and trees and stuff. So it was hard for me to pick that out. But combine the high contrast mode that you see here with the radar effects, it made me actually not only able to get through this largely stealthily. I mean, yeah, there were some encounters that I totally blew, and then I had to go get my way out of it. But a lot of times I was able to get through a section without killing anything, or I could just be the predator, turn my, I just started calling this predator instead of low vision mode or high contrast mode. Turn on my predator vision and just start stealth killing fools left and right. I mean, it just felt badass. I mean, that's all there is to say. So I started out thinking, oh, this is kind of a neat feature and I might use it occasionally. But as I started playing the game and I tried using it a time or two, by the end of the game, it was just one of those natural things. I'm like, oh, here's a stealthy section. Okay, this isn't too bad to see. Oh, this section is a little bit harder. You know what? Flick left on the touchpad and high contrast is on. Do my thing. Okay, I'm good. Flick left again. Boom, turn it off and I'm back to full color mode. You don't have to pause the game. You don't have to change any settings in an option menu or restart anything. It's freaking beautiful. It's just another mode. It's just like, Sam Fisher in Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. I had that, the night vision mode. I had the infrared mode or whatever he had. He had two alternate vision modes. Or three, the electro one too. But the one where it turned everything grayish I would turn that on all the time, on and off all the time in Chaos Theory. And that was just part of the fiction because he had this cool visor on his head. But I use this kind of a similar way. Or Batman, the Batman Arkham series, the detective vision, similar concept that played into the fiction of the game. But this is just a standard accessibility feature that I could instantly turn on and off at will. Same thing with magnifier. You don't click the touchpad, but if you double tap it, you can zoom in, or double tap and hold and zoom it in more, and then you just take your finger, slide it around, and it'll pan around the image. And it's not even like the Switch or Xbox iteration where, like, when you're in that magnification mode, you can't interact with the screen. Like on the Switch, I think even on the Xbox, that's why I really don't use it all that much. I use it a lot on the Switch. But the one thing that's annoying is I have to turn the magnification on, pan around the screen, figure out what it is I want to look at or what it is I want to do, then turn it off so I can interact with the screen. But the way that in-game, not only in menus, but in-game, the way that I never have to pause the action. If there's some wall, some writing on a wall, or there's something that I really wanted to... Like, there was one character who was playing this little handheld portable game, and this was just a cool touch. There is a person playing a PSP of all things, or Vita or something, and I believe based on the music, I think they were playing Hotline Miami because of the music. I'm like, God, because it was bugging me. I heard that music. I'm like, where have I heard that music before? I know for a fact I've played it, and I thought about it for like 5 minutes. And I realized it was Hotline Miami, so I used the magnifier to, when I met her a different time later in the game, I zoomed in to look at the PlayStation screen, the little handheld screen, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that looks, it was hard to really see, but I could kind of tell what they were going for. It looked like she was playing some sort of like an overhead type of game that would have fit Hotline Miami. Or like I said, being able to read an apartment number for one of the puzzles, or just anything. Like, I didn't use magnifier a lot. I used the high contrast mode a lot more, but it was there if I needed it. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the low vision features that I used. And then we get to just, again, some of the like conveniences, like traversal, and not like ledge guard. So like if you're near a ledge that will kill you, it will give you an audio tone so that you don't automatically plunge to your death. Or as you're walking, it'll tell you that, hey, you have to jump here. Like, oh, you can actually jump up and grab this ledge, or you can jump over this pit, kind of a thing. Having those on really kind of helped. Or having audio cues in addition to the visuals for QuickTime events. Oh, I need to tap triangle here. Oh, I need to tap and hold triangle here. Oh, I need to mash the square button here. All those audio cues, even though I might have been playing largely visually, just really helped me more clearly know what I had to do. So if I was frustrated with the game, it was because of my performance and what I was doing, and I wasn't getting frustrated at the game as a barrier. So that was really cool. And then we get to text-to-speech. Boy, howdy. Again, this is going to be one of the hardest things to go back to in any other game that doesn't have this. Before and after The Last of Us Part 2, boy, tell me about it. I'm glad that I'm seeing other games like Minecraft Dungeons have text to speech support for like inventory and upgrade screens. But let me tell you, The Last of Us, God, does it do it right. I can click in the touchpad anytime, and within, 2 seconds, I can arrow through my crafting menu, just like even if I'm in a battle. And believe me, this happened. There were a couple of instances, there was a couple of combat scenarios where I'm like, oh shit, I need a health kit, or I need to craft something really fast. I could click that touchpad, and I just kind of, I would hear the items as I was arrowing through them, but I kind of knew that, oh, okay, the first thing I land on is the health kit. And then, oh, if I want to craft a Molotov real quick, it's one to the right, or I need to craft a new, I forget what it was, but it was like on the second row and a couple in, but just hearing that quick confirmation. And then being able to, you get these skill trees, you get these supplements in these little, you'd find these supplements in the environment where you would, when you would go into the skill tree menu and you'd say, okay, do I want to be in the survival or the combat or the stealth skill tree, depending on what skill manuals you found it throughout the game. And I could hear exactly what those did, how much it cost, no problem. At the crafting table, I could easily see which weapons I could craft, which ones I had enough parts for, and then I go into the sub menu and go, oh, okay, well, do I want a faster reload, or do I want less recoil, or just any number of things. When I wasn't actually playing the game, I wasn't actually moving through the environment doing things. I could kind of give my eyes a rest, and I could just arrow through the inventories and skill trees and all of that. The collectible items, like there was a puzzle early on where you needed a gate code, and you had to go do a whole bunch of stuff, like in between where you got there was this piece of paper that you got with a bunch of codes on it, and then you had to go do a whole bunch of stuff before you could go back to the gate. And so, yeah, it was just text to speech. Boom, went to my my collectibles tab and found my, because I had collected a whole bunch of other like journal entries and artifacts, as they call them, and I collected a bunch since then. I just able to arrow through the list and arrow down to the note that had those gate codes, and then hit the square button after I looked at it, and boom, I had it read aloud. I figured out the gate code, and when I interacted with the gate code, it told me what number I was on. I didn't even have to look at the numeric keypad visually, or if I was unlocking a safe. There were several cases where you would find a written note or some clue about how to unlock safes. And I could do the turn dial thing, and I could unlock safes to get, item caches and stuff. Again, all with text-to-speech. It was super helpful. I didn't have to struggle with it. The other nice touch that I like is, again, I wasn't sure what gate I was actually at, so I had to try a few different gate codes, because there was there was several gate codes in there, but I wasn't sure exactly what gate code or what gate I was at. So I had to do it a couple of times and try these different codes. And the thing that I appreciated was that when I went into the list of documents menu that they had, it would remember which one I left off on. So I didn't always have to re-arrow down to that note that had these gate codes on it. It remembered that, oh, you just looked at that, so you probably want to look at that again next time, right? So that I appreciated. That was a really nice touch. And again, I noticed that on Brandon's podcast, he had mentioned the save system. Sony's, the PlayStation's text-to-speech is there, but it's limited at best. And apparently the generic, system-wide save dialogues and stuff do not speak. So Naughty Dog went above and beyond, and they made their own save system to be compatible with text-to-speech, which I did use. Every so often, I did make a manual save file, and all of it spoke. It was beautiful. And the cool thing is, and during gameplay, not only did it read you your inventory and things, but if tooltips came up and little like text reminders of like, oh, hey, when you're up and doing this, hit this button or this button combination. If you died and it read, and it popped up a kind of a game hint that games will normally do on loading screens, it read those. It would, you have the audio cues and pings for crouching, for jumping and whatever, but like every so often, again, if a prompt popped up, it would say press A to jump here. And it would also tell you contextually, if you waited, let's say that I held down my R1 button for a long time, but didn't hit square or circle because I forgot which one was enemy, which one was item. If I held down the R button and I waited long enough, it would pop up at the tip visually and it would audibly tell me, hey, press circle for item, square for enemy. So it would just retell you those things. And what I also find really helpful is at any time, all I had to do is flick up on the touchpad and it would tell you all the information you needed to know. It would tell you if you were blind and you couldn't see, am I crouching or am I standing? It would tell you, are you crouching, standing, or are you prone? Are you in tall grass, short grass? Are you behind cover? It would tell you if you were behind cover, and it would tell you what your health status was. It would tell you health 100%, health 30%. So, that was brilliant. The one thing that I would say is they did have a constant, like a rumbly tone when you were prone, and I appreciate that it was there, but I think I wish it was something a little less loud, because I'm trying to sneak through areas and like there would be enemies talking, or there would be, maybe my ally, my buddy was talking to me, and I would just hear this, there's this low rumbling noise, and it was kind of loud. So I kind of wish it was there, but maybe that it wasn't quite as prominent because it kind of overpowered everything else. So yeah, I'm glad it was there. It told you the difference between crouched and prone, but I think it was just a little bit too prominent. And so if they could maybe back that off just a little bit, it'd be kind of helpful. But I don't know if I've covered everything that I've used. And some of the stuff probably doesn't follow or fall under blind specifically, but it can help people with mobility impairments or, even the lock-on. There were times where there was somebody super far away, and it was hard to see them, or there was a part where there was these, it wasn't like a gameplay critical thing, but it was these little targets that you had to shoot with a bow and arrow. And being able to quickly find them around the room would have been a little bit hard for me. But, the auto-targeting was very helpful there. It had the ability. Right now, they are working on a fix so that a few of these puzzles are doable. But there are, a half a dozen points throughout the game. They're not that many, but I would say half dozen to 10 tops of puzzles, like big environmental puzzles. And it would warn you when you get to these parts, it would say, hey, this puzzle may not be fully accessible to all players. Go to the pause menu and skip the puzzle if you need to. And I did try some of the puzzles, and I did complete some of them on my own. I did have to use my vision. And even a couple of them, I found that I was able to do them with primarily the audio cues. Some of them, like where you're pushing, you had to push crates or these dumpsters or whatever around so you could climb up somewhere. I kind of had to use my vision for that. And there were some other ones with like, you would get a thing of wire, and a couple of those I wasn't really super sure on. So I did try skipping a couple of them just to see that you could and how it worked. Yeah, but I did complete some, and I did skip a couple of them. But again, just having that option if you really, really have trouble or you just physically cannot do it with the tools that are given to you. And again, Naughty Dog has said that they are actually trying to work on a later patch that will make those types of puzzles accessible to blind players. And given what I've seen so far, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. So yeah, those. If I think of any more, I'll throw them in. But I mean, that's largely the accessibility features that I used. I mean, there's so many more that I didn't talk about. There's so many more that I didn't even mention for hearing or mobility or whatever. But I was able to find just a set of accessibility tools that didn't dumb down the game for me. It didn't dumb it down. It didn't make the game less of a game for me, but it made me more easily able to participate in it. And once I got a few of the initial sound effects down and a few of the accessibility layers and mechanics, I was hooked. The story had hooked me. Like, even during that first stream where I left off, it's like, oh boy, some stuff went down. And it only gets crazier from there. So, the story hooked me just like the first game did, but then the ease of access, the accessibility stuff, just cemented that even more and said, oh, by the way, no, like, mechanically, no, you're just hooked on this game in all different ways now. So yeah, awesome, awesome job, and I'm so glad that they've proven that a game like basically any mainstream game right now, like getting through a 3D complex modern game environment, they've proven it's possible. Not only is it possible, but it's not clunky. If done well, you can just move through the environment with relative ease. I am impressed. I am very impressed. So that's a touch on the accessibility stuff. Okay, more than a touch, but there you go. There's been a couple other topics relating to The Last of Us and the accessibility and stuff. One of them being the platform exclusivity. And I totally get that, especially if you're, let's say, a blind gamer that has never been able to play really mainstream games before, other than maybe the occasional fighting game here and there, you want to play this game. And maybe you got an Xbox because it has more full, like, system-wide text-to-speech. I get that. And you want to be the PlayStation. You want to be able to play the PlayStation. But you don't have one. And they're few $100, and the game is $60. It's not super cheap. And, a lot of people are like, well, this is, discrimination. It's not fair. They're putting up more, yeah, they have the accessibility, but they're putting barriers up for us. And I get the frustration. I do. But, honestly, like, this is something, whether you have a disability or not, it's part of being a gamer. Since you had Atari, then you had ColecoVision, Intellivision, a whole bunch of other weird systems back then. You had the Master System and the NES. You had the TurboGrafx-16. You had the Super Nintendo versus Genesis, N64 versus PlayStation, GameCube, Xbox, PS2, PS3, Wii, GameCube, or PS3, Wii, and 360. There's always multiple consoles. And especially now, like, I think console exclusives is honestly one of the last key things that really differentiates each of these modern systems from each other, because basically a modern gaming console is pretty much a custom gaming PC at that count. Strip down the operating system some. We don't care about running spreadsheets and running a web browser and doing all this other crazy stuff. We're here to play games, maybe watch some movies, and that's about it. Do some social media or social networking stuff, maybe record some video clips. That's about it. And that's fine. So, but I mean, the PlayStation, the Xbox, like, and even the PC. That's why I play so many games on PC, because I have a powerful enough rig that, it probably is a little more powerful than my original Xbox One. Or, I got the PlayStation 4 Slim. I didn't get the original, but I didn't get the Pro. And The Last of Us played generally fine. So they have to have something. I mean, because otherwise it's like, well, why even bother to make multiple consoles? Because, they have to have something that's going to draw in, unique. They have to have something unique to draw in people to their systems. And those were game exclusives. I mean, Mario is never going to come to Xbox, like it or not. Mario Odyssey is not going to come to the PC through Steam or through Windows. It's just never going to happen. Halo is never going to go to PlayStation. Gears of War is never going to go to PlayStation. Games like God of War, The Last of Us, the Ratchet and Clank games. I mean, take your pick. I mean, those are just, first-party exclusive games that make those companies' systems stand out. And, that's one of the main, again, what's one of the main things that actually differentiates these systems from each other, because essentially now they're just PCs. They're custom PCs at this point. So, no, it's not putting up an extra barrier to the accessibility thing. Now, I mean, I do get it. Again, if the platform the game is on, like let's say the PlayStation, let's say that maybe you have a mobility impairment where there's not, like the PlayStation controller just does not work for you. And there isn't a type of accessible or an adaptive controller like Microsoft has that works with the PlayStation, or there's not, maybe you have a specific input device that works with the PC that doesn't work on another platform. Yeah. I mean, in that case, I get it. Because there's just no physical way to play it. But if it's just, yes, gaming is an expensive hobby. I mean, lots of hobbies are really expensive, but if you get into gaming, that's one of the things you sign up for. I know, like I said, a lot of blind players are used to getting things for free. They get things paid for from vocational rehabilitation through the government. They're used to free monthly checks, or even paying lower, like subsidized costs for things. Or, audio games, they're a little bit smaller in scale, and but they may not usually cost as much. A couple bucks, 20, $30 tops. Mainstream games can range anywhere from $5, $10, all the way up to $60 for a regular AAA game. And then if you go beyond like a special edition or season passes or extra DLC, sighted players have to fork over money constantly. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of games that are free to play. I mean, if you want to deal with all the microtransaction nonsense, go for it, be my guest. But there are some, I mean, granted, unfortunately, there's not as many accessible free to play options, and I hope to God that changes. But no, it's not a price discrimination, against you. But it kind of ties back to, it's hard enough to live independently as it is on SSI, to pay the bills, to pay the rent, let alone afford a gaming system and games. I get it. Like I said, I was there for several years. I really, if I had to budget like a year in advance to say, okay, this is the 1 or 2 games this year that I absolutely have to have. So I would set aside $10 a month, $20 a month, or whatever I could to be able to afford it while I was not working. But all this time, I was also treating the job search. You have to treat the job search as a full-time job. You can't just be like, oh, I'll apply for a job every now and again, and hopefully I'll just get one. Especially when you are disabled, you do have to work twice as hard to get half the return in place. So, I mean, if possible, yeah, I mean, we should go out there and, if possible, we should go out there and get jobs and then use those paid, because then you'll have more disposable income too. And then you will be able to buy game systems or musical instruments or movies or whatever hobby floats your boat. Buy a whole bunch of action figures. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But, it's kind of just the way it is. It sucks, but, I mean, it's something that we've all, like everybody, any gamer, that's just something you have to deal with as a gamer for exclusivity. I just had it in my head. One of the other topics. Oh, crap. Oh, yeah. So as far as accessibility, I want to bring this back to accessibility for a moment and just say, like I said, yeah, there is kind of this huge tipping point because The Last of Us Part 2 has proven that a AAA game like this can be accessible and frankly should be accessible now because it is proven that it can work. And I'm hoping that we do see like a competition among other game developers who see it and go, oh, wow, they did a great job, and people are buying into it. There's been news stories, videos, and audio interviews, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on the last few days about it alone. But, people thinking that, oh, well, now that The Last of Us is out, well, now anytime now, from now on, we should just start seeing games and expecting every game released from this point on to be very close, if not as accessible as The Last of Us 2. And unfortunately, the reality is that's not going to happen. Not yet, because a lot of the games that are going to be coming out in the next year, maybe even 2 years, because big games take a long time to make, anywhere between 2 and 5, 6 years. These games are already deep into development. So it's hard to add, I've always said it's always harder to bolt on accessibility features later than it is to implement them and design with them in mind from the beginning. So, the games that are in development now, they're going to be coming out in the next couple of years. they might have a few accessibility features here and there, and maybe there will be more of them that will surprise us and have a pretty solid set of accessibility features. But again, these other developers and publishers, they're able to play The Last of Us 2 starting this last Friday, just like the rest of us. So they may have heard about the accessibility stuff early on, or earlier than we did, maybe, but probably not. And, even having them, like, if they have played the game now or are playing the game and are taking notes and trying to figure out some of these things, how to do it in their titles, it may be hard to retroactively put it into their current game, but it's something they could look into for their next products that might come out within 2 to 3, 4 years from now. So there might be a big boom in a couple of years where maybe we do start to see a level of accessibility like we find in The Last of Us in many other games. But it's going to take a little while because they have to come to grips with, how did they do that? Okay, this is what they did for that. Okay, let's figure out how to make this. Okay, let's make a similar system for our game. And they're going to have to build it in just to their development environment, period. Like I said, I don't know that something this comprehensive is going to be able to be done as a bolt-on product. It's just probably highly, highly doubtful. So, no, we didn't just hit a switch and now, we should expect all games to be accessible. I would love if that were the case, and I hope we just see more and more games, even if they don't get all the way there, like Minecraft Dungeons. It has a lot of text-to-speech, but I wouldn't call it blind accessible. But even if the current crop of games in the next year or two have that level, and then they see games like The Last of Us and they say, okay, this is how you can do a navigation system. This is how you can get the blind player around the environment. This is how you can implement a on-the-fly high contrast mode, or remap controls, or add great subtitles, or have all kinds of gameplay tweaks, not just difficulties, but like tweaks and enhancements. I mean, all of these different things that can work together so that anybody, disabled or not, can customize their experience to how they want to play. That's going to take a little bit longer. But now there is an example out there, and I think more developers will follow. So I just wanted to put that caveat out there because I know a lot of people are just going to be like, well, but if they did it, why can't all the other games do it? Because games are very, very complex. They take a long time. The development tools are, themselves have to be updated. I mean, they're using their own engine. They're not using Unreal or Unity. I think they just call it the Naughty Dog engine. So, I mean, their games are just, they're their own beast. And, yeah. So, I wanted to throw that out there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before I touch on the story a little bit. I'm probably not going to talk a super long time about the story, but I do just want to give you like a few of my highlights and just overall thoughts on the story, because I've heard even on mainstream reviews that that's rather polarizing. Some people love it, some people, not so much. Before I talk about the story, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I really want to say about The Last of Us as far as accessibility, gameplay, non-spoilery. I can't really think of anything. I think I've rather covered most of the thoughts that are in my head. I'm sure I'll have a few more when I'm done with this video and go, I should have talked about that. Oh, yes, there is one other little thing. We were having this discussion on Twitter this morning, and there was this talk about, hey, now that we've proven that this, riding on the success of The Last of Us, should we have some sort of game industry incentive program that would incentivize developers to add accessibility features like this to their games? And I don't think that would necessarily be a bad idea, but I don't know that it's realistic to expect. I don't know that. I think it would be rather difficult, and I could be wrong, but I think it could be rather difficult to get the game industry as a whole to adopt something like this. I mean, I think of it as something industry-wide as like the ESRB rating system. That is an industry-wide system, and other countries have their own thing. Like Europe has PEGI, PEGI, I believe it is. So they have these rating systems, but that was born out of necessity. The government had basically said in the 90s, they said, if you don't regulate yourselves and if you don't provide this information for parents to make decisions for the games that their kids play, we are going to come in and regulate it for you. And they're like, oh God, we don't want a government involved, so let's buckle down and get this ESRB thing going. And now it's just a common thing. So I don't know. I don't know what it would take for the game industry to, choose to adopt some sort of incentives or standards and because you'd have to kind of like, okay, you have to meet these level of agreed upon standards, and then to incentivize people to meet those standards, either via the carrot or the stick. That it would take a while for one, I think, and I don't know how much total buy-in you would get from different parts of the industry. So it's a neat idea. I just don't know what it would really do. But I think that, as I said in a couple of my Twitter replies, I think that numbers, money, the bottom line, that's what these publishers, especially big ones like Activision and EA and all these AAA developers, they care about the bottom line. I mean, these are the same companies who, we sold 4 million copies, and to any sane person that would sound like a pretty good success. But the execs think, well, but we wanted to sell 6, and so the game was a spectacular failure, so now we're just going to axe this franchise and close the game studio. That's happened a lot. So, money talks. And so I think it would be really interesting to see. I remember, like, one of the things that the game said when I started playing with these accessibility features on the stream in The Last of Us 2 was that they said, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to keep some anonymous stats and send them to Naughty Dog or Sony to show like what features people used, because they want to see like, hey, okay, we made all these features, does anyone use this high contrast theme? Do they use subtitles? Do they use text to speech? Do they use some of these gameplay assists like auto targeting or ledge detection, or whatever the heck it's called, I forget, where you can't fall off ledges. But, do they use those? And I would say I would love to see within the first week and the first month would be a very interesting thing to see. I would love to see, like, how many people. I would love to see a similar tables on this website. I would love to almost see these features, and they don't have to be used all the time during the game, but at some point while playing, because I would turn a lot of these features on and off at will. I would turn high contrast mode off, and then I would turn it on for a while. But I would be curious how many players, disabled or not, tried and used these features, at least some of the time. And I don't know, through social media or something like that, I would be kind of almost interested to know, because I know of at least between a half a dozen and a dozen, probably people that I could fairly easily name, who bought a PlayStation 4 or this game just because it was actually a game that bothered to include accessibility for them. You know, a lot of blind players have never been able to play a triple A action game before. So, yeah, they wanted to play it. They bought a PlayStation 4, or maybe they had a PlayStation 4 because they played Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. But then they bought this because they could play something different. But it'd be really interesting to see how many people would self-identify, not just blind, but any kind of disability. Like, how many people bought this game just because Naughty Dog actually bothered to think of them and include them when they were developing the game. Like, those two areas, I think, would be rather fascinating, because we've always heard, again, I said this in my presentation a couple of weeks ago to IGDA. I said, you know, one of the things is, one of the myths that people have is that, oh, it costs way too much money to cater to a tiny audience who would actually even bother to make use of these features. So I would love to kind of know, given a game that does so many of these things, you know, how many people, believe it or not, actually, are we going to get like that Far Cry New Dawn stat where it's like 15% of players are deaf or hard of hearing, but 97% use subtitles? I don't know about you, but I think that's a bit of a definite difference. And so subtitles are clearly helpful to a lot more people than just deaf. So yeah, I think instead, what I would love, there are a couple things I would love to see. I would love to see game award shows like Jeff Keighley's Game Awards and the Game Developer Conference, the GDC Game Developer Awards. I would love to see various accessibility categories added. And I could think of a few, you know, best accessible game or most accessible game of the year. Maybe a developer who was the best game developer, who really embraced accessibility throughout all of their games. And then, you know, even maybe some on the user side or like on the advocacy side, like recognizing game advocates and consultants that would go in and, you know, people with disabilities that actually, you know, helped studios ensure that it wasn't just, we're not just developing these features in a vacuum, but we're actually communicating with the potential players and taking in their feedback. So recognizing the advocates and consultant contributors to help make these accessibility features happen. Those are just like a few that I could see in these types of award shows, and I think it would be some well-deserving categories. The other thing that I would love, at least on a general level, you know, I know you can't give your proprietary engine and secrets away, but what I would love to see Naughty Dog do is I would love to have not even just I'm sure I would love to see a game developer conference or similar type of presentation on just the way that they thought of and implemented these accessibility features in The Last of Us Part 2. But I would love for Naughty Dog to release some kind of even general resource documentation for other developers and especially when it comes to like the pathfinding and the navigation systems. Um, because the thing is, if everybody, again, remember I said it's going to take a couple years for people to look at what The Last of Us did and implement that into their own games. And part of that is, if all of these developers have to reinvent the wheel every time, okay, well, this game over here did it, but we don't know how they did it. So, okay, how do we add a good... What did they take into consideration when being able to do a quick on the fly high contrast mode? What did they do to make sure that a blind player could navigate this complex environment without it being super tedious and still be fun, and not have to worry about them falling off ledges and killing themselves, or running into walls constantly? What did they do? How did they do that? And I would love to see some videos, and I would love to see some like videos and like text references from Naughty Dog of like, share that to developers and be like, hey, you guys, we've done a lot of this research, a lot of experimentation, a lot of development around this, and we all want as many players as we can to play our games. This is how we did it with our engine in a way, or like at least the top level of the concepts and what you have to consider, what you need to have to make this work. And then the developers can add it to their games, and hell, engine, maybe 10 years from now, Unreal Engine, Unreal Engine and any other one, maybe they'll have stuff like this built in, just like they're starting to add screen reader support natively. So maybe they'll have some sort of like navigation API if they can figure it out and put it in on the engine scale. But again, that's going to take a lot of time. But I would love to see Naughty Dog throw other developers some kind of at least high level reference that they could use, so that they don't have to start from square one. Even if they had to start from 25% in, 50% in, but they would have some existing knowledge, and then they could adapt it to their engine and or game, so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel all the time, and just get some standards and stuff out there. So that's basically what I want to say about The Last of Us 2, and as far as accessibility and non-spoiler stuff. So I know this is a long video again, but again, this is such a hugely important game and hugely important event that I just wanted to kick back and talk about all aspects of this game now that I've beaten it. So, spoiler alert, do not listen to this unless you have played the game, or unless you really don't care about having things spoiled. But again, I'm warning you, spoiler alert, spoilers are fair game from this point on. So, story. That is one of the things that I think draws a lot of people to The Last of Us and Naughty Dog games in general, be it Uncharted or, even when they started out with the Crash Bandicoot. I never really got into those stories much, but like Uncharted and especially The Last of Us, the gameplay sounded really cool when I saw the original, but then the story really sort of captured me too. And yeah, there are these zombie-esque things, you have this like weird plague thing, that these spores that infect people, and you have kind of the runners, and then you have the clickers and these other different types of mutations. But honestly, it's more about the actual, again, similar to The Walking Dead, is like the people are the true horrors, the people that are still alive and in factions and just doing horrible things to each other at all times. The first game started out where, you played for a brief moment. The beginning part, you played as Joel's kid during the initial outbreak. And then after that, you started playing as Joel. You tried to escape, and just the prologue of that game was just brutal because, Joel's kid just got gunned down, and Joel held the kid in his arms as she died. And it was rough to watch. And then from that point on, they found out about this kid who potentially was immune and could, cure this disease, aka Ellie. And so the whole game was basically you getting her to the Fireflies so that they could try to get a cure. Well, in doing so, they found out that in order to... I had somebody ask me about this on Twitter. It's like, okay, there's a weird story part about why do they have to kill her to get a cure? Can't they just take a blood sample? And they touch upon it in Last of Us 2 as well, during one of the flashbacks, that there's something, I don't know, in the brain or whatever, but there's something where, the only way that they can get what they need would kill her, because it was something to do with, her brain or something, and, but whatever it was, they couldn't operate around it, and if they got whatever it is they needed, whatever material they needed for the cure, it would kill her. And over the journey of the first game, you're playing as Joel most of the time. You do play a little bit of Ellie later on, but largely you're playing as Joel, and he is getting attached to this girl that he's been escorting across the country, and kind of thinks of her as his replacement daughter. So by the end of the game, he finds out that they're going to kill her in order to get this cure, and he just can't do it. Yes, it's sacrifice one life for however many, but he just can't do it, and, make of that decision what you will. But at least you see where he's coming from, in a weird way. And the first game just ends on this sort of really vague, they're walking through, and he kind of makes her think that, there are other people, you're just one of many, they'll find a cure from somebody else, it's all good, I just rescued you. And you could tell that is really iffy whether she believed him or not. And that does actually factor into the second game, because a large part of Ellie's struggle is through these flashbacks. You do find out that she actually sort of figures things out a little bit more, does her own little bit of research. She goes back to the hospital, finds an audio recording from a doctor of how, we have to kill her in order to get the cure. And then she confronts Joel and just makes him admit it, and she gets mad because she's like, well, I was able to contribute even with my death, and you took that away from me. There was an interesting sort of a thing there, because then she was just super cold to Joel for the last bit of his life. That comes into play. But then they also do this flashback of one of the main characters, who is the doctor, and his wife, I think it is, or I think they're married. But you find out from their side that one of the people, that we saw in the first game, that I think she was the one that told Joel that they would have to kill, because when Joel got captured, and then you made that final push through the hospital, she told Joel that they were going to have to sacrifice the kid. But what you didn't know from the first game was that she really didn't like it either. She's like, God, is there any other way? Can you? I get that you have to do it to save humanity, but like, this is terrible. She's just a kid. So I like how they really humanized both the doctor and the lady there, who, they're not just like, oh, you kind of get to see their point of view of it too. And again, it's like, okay, yeah, you really love someone, you absolutely hate for them to die. But if they can literally save humanity, God, it's like, if I knew that I had a cure for something, would I want to kill myself? Or would I want to basically, while I was alive, end my life so that everyone else could live? I can't imagine the emotional struggle that would come with that kind of responsibility. I mean, obviously, I don't want to die. I have troubles just like everybody else does, but I love living. I love life. And I just couldn't, I don't want to just, okay, I'm going to go. I know we all going to die sometime, but boy, yeah, being able to make that decision, I don't know. Whether you're making it for somebody or whether you have to make it for yourself, that's just really one of those struggles the game kind of tries to tell you. So there's that part of it. And then I thought was really interesting. So Last of Us 2, you start out, you're playing as Ellie a little bit, but then a few minutes in, then you start playing as this Abby character, and you're like, what? Who the hell is this Abby? Why do I care about her? What is this? So she comes into the picture, and you play as her. You're coming into town. At first I thought it was a flashback. Then I found out, oh no, it's happening concurrently because Abby and Ellie's story end up coming together toward the end of the stream that I did, which will be coming out Monday. And turns out Joel did a number on Abby's family, so she wants revenge on Joel, and her group of people, the WLF, Washington Liberation Front, they go along with it. So that's where all those people team up and they meet Joel, and that's where Ellie walks in on that. And oh yeah, you see Joel gets just brutally executed right after Ellie comes in, and she witnesses basically Joel get cleaved with a freaking hatchet, or I think it was a hatchet or something. Like, he just, that was gnarly, man. That's the thing is, people talk about the violence and over the top in this game, where we're going to come back to that because, man, I play games like Brutal Doom and, Left 4 Dead, but Brutal Doom and just all these games where they're just super over the top violence, but they're over the top in a weird, like, exaggerated, cartoony way, where The Last of Us just has this, like, more grisly but grounded brutality to it that is honestly, because the way the presentation and the voice acting and, like, the background, you feel they're not just one-dimensional characters. Over the games, you get to, like, identify with them and sort of see where they're coming from and the way they build the world. And so, like, when stuff happens, when it gets all brutal and, like, someone just gets gashed in the face or gutted, or they get their arms chopped, All of these things kind of happen in this game. I mean, there's some gnarly shit that happens in this game, but it's on a, like I said, it's on more of like a more sort of realistic but super just grisly, brutal level that honestly feels pretty uncomfortable at times. It's like I said, I can watch a demon get exploded and jibs flying everywhere, and just it's kind of funny in a weird way, because it's just so ridiculous. But like the impact that they sell all of this stuff on with The Last of Us is actually, oof. I mean, that's what makes it. That's what sells it, is because you kind of buy into these characters. But then, so now you have Abby's revenge. Well, then you have, because the first part of the game you're playing through Ellie going to Seattle, these 3 days in Seattle, tracking down the killers that killed Joe, and you're like, oh man, like even at the end of the stream, I'm like, oh man, I love Joel. Like, yeah, okay, I totally, she's mad, she wants to go back and take care of that group of people that killed him. So when it started, I got that. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's, you can't go back and keep doing revenge, and then they want revenge, and then you want revenge, and it's an endless cycle. But like, I get her wanting revenge. But what's interesting is the game goes on, you play through Ellie's story to a point, and you play through some flashbacks. You get a couple of flashbacks with Joel when he was alive, so you get to see more Joel. I really like some of the downtime stuff with not only him, Ellie and Joel, but Ellie and Dina. Like I like when they find the pot farm in the basement. That was a pretty great scene, and that was just kind of amusing. But I really like the flashback in the science museum. That was cool, and I wish I could remember what that looked like, because I have been to the science museum in Seattle. I have been to that museum, and I think that's where I sat in that capsule. If it wasn't that particular capsule that was in the game, it was something very similar, because I remember sitting in, I think it was like the Apollo 11 capsule. They had it there. And that scene with him, with Joel and Ellie, that was just a really neat kind of, kind of a touching scene of getting to see them kind of be father and daughter on her birthday. That was neat. But then you go back later and you do this third day until this basically climax of the story. And then you bounce back to Seattle day one. You're like, what? Because then you actually start kind of the main part of the game over as from after the execution of Joel. You start with Abby and you play through those same 3 days, and you get to learn more about the Washington Liberation Front, the WLF. You get to meet some of the characters they have their whole base, and all of their people, and you meet some of the characters. I can't remember all their names, but you kind of get to their story, and then you get to see Lev, these two kids from this third faction that gets introduced, the Seraphites, these weird like religious fanatic people that live on an island because Washington has gotten flooded, and they are kind of, it's almost like they're put on a reservation like Native Americans or something. Like, you guys stay on your island, and they don't want to do that, and so they're fighting back. There was some sort of a truce at one time, but now they're going after each other, and so the head of the WLF is pissed, and he just wants to go annihilate the island of this Seraphite group. But you meet these two kids who they help Abby because she almost gets hung. I mean, that was a grisly scene too. I mean, they capture her. they string her up, and she's literally hanging there gasping for air. And like the whole scene, like they get rescued and then they help each other through this chase getting away from all the infected. So then she goes with this Lev character on a medical supply run so that you can help Lev's, was it his sister? I think, or I forget, but anyway, I don't remember if it was their sister or maybe it was her girlfriend, his girlfriend, I can't remember. But you go through all this stuff to help, so you're getting to see a side of Abby's character. It's like, oh, she's not just this crazy person who went and killed Joel just because he killed the parent, her parents. And you get to see a flashback of Abby with her dad. You get to see that, and you have a similar scene with her and this sea museum, which one of the other main characters inhabits as his base that you keep coming back to. Like Ellie goes back to this theater, she keeps going back to this her WLF base, but then also goes back to this other guy and the like the sea museum. But it's just a really neat, you kind of like, at first I was like, man, I mean, okay, we got Ellie's story, but like, why, we played that little bit in the beginning of Abby, and I'm just like, okay, why am I playing this character? And then I see the execution of Joel, and I'm like, okay, I get why. I see how they added, but then they make you, for the latter half of the game, a large part of that game, they pulled a Metal Gear Solid 2 on us, and they made us play Abby. And, it's like, oh, you played as Snake for the beginning mission, but then you play Raiden through the rest of Metal Gear 2. Oh, okay, and no one really knew that was going to happen prior to release. And for the first part of the first day, I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, sure, what's going to happen now, I guess. But as I played her, I started to kind of like her character a bit more. And I liked some of the people that she was with, like the people that she helped, and like her relationship between Lev and like the two kids and stuff, and trying to like, wow, man, do we really have to be, you got the WLF and the Seraphites, like, do they have to be warring, and, we're different, but we're not that different, and like, it's kind of like this whole thing going on with racism in America right now, in the world right now. I mean, this game, it touches on a lot of different things that is going on right now in like a unique way. It's not just, oh, black versus white. But these different factions, sort of these prejudices that people have, play on each other, that are kind of interesting, actually. So I liked that part, and like I said, as I kind of got to, I mean, she seemed a little bit more grounded. Yes, she wanted revenge on Joel, but she didn't want to basically kill everyone in the Fireflies or kill everyone in Thomas's camp. She left. You wondered, like, oh, well, why did she leave Ellie alive? Why did she leave the other couple people that were there? They just killed Joel, and then they left. When they get together later, when they confront each other later, she's like, we let you live. We let you we got our revenge. We let you live, but you blew it. You could have had this choice to live, and all you do is seek revenge. And like, you feel for both sides in a way, but like, I think they go a little bit too extreme on the whole, like, I want revenge, then you want revenge, then I want more revenge, and it just gets to be this weird not only revenge, but like, not only will I kill you, but I will like gut you and make you suffer, and then I will go after your entire family before I do, and then just amplify things just crazy. It's just taken to such extremes. But I don't know. I mean, that part I thought was a little bit over the top. But I think the way they pulled it off, I think it still largely worked. And going back to Ellie, so then, like I said, you play through the 3 days again as Abby. And then it was really neat because you would go through the sequence as Ellie and like even, meeting some of Abby's friends in that, I forget what the place is called, but that little base thing. And I remember distinctly, like, oh, because there's patrols now that have dogs, and like, oh, okay, you're killing dudes, you're killing the dogs because they use their sense of smell to come after you. But then you kill this one specific dog in this hallway, and you just don't really think much of it because it's like, oh, okay, I've been killing dogs, and this one was just like some kind of a guard dog or something. And then you play these missions with Abby, and you find out that this particular dog is part of their unit. And then you come through the same hallway later as Abby, and you find their dead dog. And you're like, oh, I've been here before. That was kind of a neat callback. And then you just, you see them, you see her, then you notice, and then I noticed that, like, during the initial end of Ellie's story, when she leaves, she ends up dropping her map that she's been using the whole time, which then Abby is able to figure out, oh, they're camping out at this theater. So then that's where, you play through as Abby, and then you find that, and you see the conflict from Abby's side, and then you go to the theater and you have your final confrontation as Abby. And I thought this was a really unique twist where you're using the stealth mechanics that you normally would use, but you're actually playing against against Ellie. Ellie is the boss kind of character, and you're stealthing your way around this dark theater, and you have to sneak up on her because she disarms you, and you have to like sneak around and like get behind her and try to grab her, otherwise she'll just like cut you or gun you down because she has her weapons and you don't. And it's just a brutal fight. You do the sneaky stuff, then you go through some of these quick time things, and you're just bashing the living shit out of each other. And again, I mean, the impact that these fights have, it's just insanely, it's just brutal. There's just this raw brutality to it that is, because the way the impact of everything, and then like, you just kind of feel the hatred of both of these characters. And so they both kind of go down, and they decide, okay, you know what? We basically put each other to the brink of death, and we call it. But they don't die. So then you flash back to the farm. Earlier in the game, Dina was saying how it would be nice if, like, you know what, I just want to settle down and relax on a farm. Get rid of all this crazy stuff. Have a family. You find out that she's pregnant early in the game from this other guy that she was seeing before she got with Ellie. So she's been pregnant, and he comes along, or you meet up with them in Seattle. And it's just this part of the story that I haven't really touched on. But so then they flash to the kid's born. He's just like a toddler, or like an infant toddler person. And you get this little kind of, it was weird because I'm like, okay, that's kind of the epilogue that you're gonna, I thought this game was gonna end like 3 times and it didn't. So you're on this little farm and you're just kind of getting a day, a little period of their daily life, part of a day. You pick up the kid and you're just wandering around the house. You're putting on some music. You're exploring the yard. You go get his toy. You talk to Dina, and it's just kind of a nice thing of like, okay, well, she actually recovered. They were able to just go back home and settle down. They didn't join Thomas back at their settlement. They just had this farm where Joel and Ellie originally lived. And then the guy comes back and finds out that, oh, well, we think we know where Abby is. You should finish this. And it's like, no, I'm not really going to do it. No, I'm not going to. I'm done. And then that night, she's like, oh, I keep having these nightmares. You get this little weird flashback, or you get this weird, like, hallucination when she's trying to herd the sheep into the barn. And so she decides, like, nope, I can't sleep, I can't eat. I've got to finish it. I thought I could not do it, but I have to finish it. And Dina is just like, nope, I can't do this anymore. Ellie leaves. And I thought that's where it was going to end. It was going to be like, oh, okay, part 3, The Last of Us 3 is going to be her going again on revenge after Ellie. Nope. Turns out, then you go back to Abby finding the fireflies, looking in this basement in this little town, radios some guy in the fireflies, finds them, comes out of the basement with Lev, and they get ambushed and captured by some other freak group. And then it cuts back to Ellie, they've tracked her down to going to this place in California. Ellie comes in, you go through this tons of frickin' infected. That was a brutal chase, trying to come down this hill, and there's tons of these dudes. But you come down there to look for Abby, and you end up getting caught in this trap, hanging upside down. The guys that captured Abby capture Ellie, and then she gets out of it by kind of doing a little trick with infected. And let's just say, so she finds out Abby is being held in some sort of prison place. So you go into prison so that you can be the one to go after and execute her. So there's just this weird, like, there's like an epilogue at the farm, and then there's like this weird epilogue thing where, like, no, we're actually going to finish this revenge story. So long story short, you go through this prison, you get through some guards, you break some prisoners free. They tell you that Abby's being held. They got her on these weird, like, down by the beach, they got this like big they basically crucify you almost. They pin you up to some sticks and let the buzzards have at you. Cuts her down. They're both just grievously injured at this point. And so they get Lev and Abby out to their boat. They're going to go. And Ellie's like, I can't let you leave. You know that, right? And she's like, no, you know what? I'm done. This revenge, it's not getting us anywhere. We're done. We're done. Do whatever you want. I'm out. And so she threatens, because Lev is super injured. So she's like, oh, no, I'll make you do it because I'll just go after you. I'll just go after Lev and then make you fight me. And the game basically just ends with this, like, brutal there's a few kind of boss fights where it's all melee and you're dodging and just like beating the living crap out of each other. And this one was just, you're in this like knee high water and you're just slugging and knifing the crap out of each other. It's just, man, it's ridiculous. And the, like, you're playing as Ellie. So before you played Abby fighting Ellie as the boss, and now you're playing as Ellie fighting Abby, and you think, okay, you're actually going to kill her. And it looks that way. You're beating the living piss out of each other. And she's like hitting her, holding her head underwater, like drowning her. And just before you think she's going to die drowning, she lets her up and lets her go. And yeah, wow. And then it just cuts a little scene from the farm, and like Dina's gone. There's no one at the farm anymore. She finds the guitar, tries to play one of her songs that she's learned over the years and just can't. So then she just leaves the farm, leaves the guitar leaning on by the window, and credits. So I mean, it's like I said, there's a lot going on. I skipped over a lot of stuff, but like I think, like I said, I think they go a little bit crazy with like the amounts that the depths that they will go to. Like they really stress, dude, these guys are out for revenge and they're going to massacre a village. They're going to massacre a civilization until they get that one person that they need. You know, it's justifiable to kill 300, 500 people just to kill that one person that you want revenge on. But that's a little bit of a disconnect. But I mean, overall, I thought the story was told really well. You buy into the characters. They actually did end up making me care about Abby, when in the beginning I'm like, who is this chick? Like, why are we doing, okay, we got some other girl we're playing as now? And by the end of the game, like, you realize basically everyone in this world sucks. Like, there's a shred of humanity in parts of them, but like a lot of them, like, everybody is just kind of terrible. And I totally glazed over the part where you're actually, as Abby, you have to go to that island and rescue Lev because he went to go try to rescue his mom, who is so bought up in this cult that she's just like lunacy, and like she just, I don't know, she's like this religious nut that just follows everything and is like, you will go by the book or you will perish in hell or whatever, and you will just blah 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 whatever. And you don't even see her mom, or his mom, but some stuff happens there. And as this is happening, the WLF has started the invasion on the island. And that was a really cool sequence where you're escaping this village and it's just, everything is going up in flames. Everyone is shooting at each other, not just you. You have people recognizing, like some of their faction recognizes your partner that's accompanying you. They recognize Lev, they recognize Abby, and it's just a really weird, unique sequence. But like by the end of the game, I actually thought that, I mean, Abby had a little bit more humanity than Ellie did at this point. Like, I liked her in the first game. I got why she wanted to go after Joel, or why Joel's killer. But I don't know, like, Ellie kind of just seems like a raging psychopath. Like, she's like this serial killer that's just, I don't know. There's just something about her that, you know, even when she was talking with Joel, it's like, well, oh, you took this away from me. I hate you for loving me and saving my life. And like, I mean, I get that you don't want to see humanity die, but I don't know. There's just something about Ellie that just, over time, she kind of became less likable in a way. And I don't know if that was really by design or not, but it was kind of a fascinating experience. So, you know, again, I wanted to touch on the story a little bit. because, yeah, we've talked a lot about the accessibility features, but it's not, again, on top of being the most accessible game I've ever played, or that's ever been released, it's also one of the highest in production values and, story, and it's a AAA game through and through. So I don't even know how long I've been blabbing. I knew this was going to be a long video, but I just figured I would turn on the mic, get my thoughts out there, because I know that a lot of people kind of had questions and just wondered what I thought of the game, and I really didn't want to just do it all during a spotlight, because as you just found out, there's a heck of a lot to talk about, and I needed some time to process it. I didn't want to do it having just played part of the game, but like I said, having beat the game last night, it's still fresh in my mind. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw my thoughts out there, get all the accessibility stuff out there, and what did I think about the game? Aside from, am I just playing it because of the accessibility? No, I mean, I was genuinely interested in the story. I mean, that's why I just binged the hell out of this game in 2 days, because I wanted to see where the plot would go. And it just so happened that the accessibility features helped immensely in making it not super frustrating. I really wasn't stuck very much at all in that game. I would say the couple parts that were a little bit awkward, the boat controls were a little bit strange. They felt a little bit too sensitive, like turning left and right was... I got the hang of it eventually, but especially at first it seemed a little bit squirrely. And then, of course, there was that sniper scene that I talked about during the accessibility navigation section there, where basically there's this sniper down the road, and you have to get up close to him, basically, so you can take him out. But you have to duck behind these cars, and then he's shooting to make noises so that the clickers will come, and so you're fighting in this tunnel, and you have to get around these cars, but then you've got these clickers to contend with in addition to the sniper shots. And I had a little bit of weirdness with that particular sniping section and the navigation assistance thing, and then a little bit toward the end of that chase sequence. So there you go, guys. I think that's about what I have to say about The Last of Us Part 2. I think I'm going to kick back, maybe read a book, maybe listen to something. I don't know, but I think Sunday is just going to be a time of relaxation. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, mixer.com/BGFH, illegally-cited.com, and of course, youtube.com/illegally-cited. The Last of Us stream will be going up on Monday. I'm thinking about just releasing this video today because what the hell, I've been doing a lot of bonus videos already anyway. What with all the summer gaming events going on, and with The Last of Us being such a big deal, I might just throw this up on the web or on the YouTubes tonight or today, so enjoy that. Anyway, I will probably be doing like a shorter spotlight video that just highlights a few of the game mechanics and the accessibility features, especially now that I'm more comfortable in how to use them. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, I will chat with you guys again later.